Fair use. Daily reflections. This is a book of reflections by AA members for AA members. July 2nd. The heart of true sobriety. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 568. Am I honest enough to accept myself as I am and let this be the me that I let others see? Do I have the willingness to go to any length to do whatever is necessary to stay sober? Do I have the open-mindedness to hear what I have to hear, to think what I have to think, and to feel what I have to feel? If my answer to these questions is yes, I know enough about the spirituality of the program to stay sober. As I continue to work the 12 steps, I move on to the heart of true sobriety, serenity with myself, with others, and with God as I understand Him. Courage to Change One Day at a Time in Al-Anon, July 2nd. Al-Anon helps many of us to identify and change self-destructive behavior. In my case, procrastination was the source of a great deal of needless anxiety. But with Al-Anon's help, I have managed to recognize and change that pattern. As I learned to focus on myself, I began to pay attention to my own thoughts and feelings. When I felt anxious, I took the time to find out what was causing my discomfort. I realized that I had a habit of postponing unpleasant tasks until the last possible moment. Knowing I would have to perform the task eventually, I found it hard to relax until it was done. I came to see that if I took care of the task right away, I could usually let go of anxiety and appreciate the rest of the day. Old habits can be hard to break. It didn't happen overnight, but as I became more willing to let go of procrastination, my life became more manageable and more enjoyable. Today's reminder: if I am getting in the way of my own best interests, a closer look at my behavior can lead to positive changes. By focusing on myself, I move toward freedom and serenity today. There is a Liberian proverb and it reads, "Do not look where you fell, but where you slipped." Just for today, Daily Meditations for Recovering Addicts, July 2nd. Comparing. Our personal stories may vary in individual pattern, but in the end, we all have the same thing in common. Basic text, page 87. We addicts are a varied bunch, coming from different backgrounds, having used drugs and recalling different experiences. Our differences don't disappear in recovery. For some, those differences become even more pronounced. Freedom from active addiction gives us the freedom to be ourselves as we truly are. The fact that we are all recovering doesn't mean that we all necessarily have the same needs or goals. Each of us has our own lessons to learn in recovery. With so many differences from one addict to the next, how do we help one another in recovery, and how do we use each other's experience? We come together to share our lives in light of the principles of recovery. Though our lives are different, the spiritual principles we apply are the same. It is by the light of these principles, shining through our differences, that we illuminate one another's way on our individual paths. We all have two things in common: addiction and recovery. When we listen carefully, we hear others tell of suffering from the same disease we have suffered from, regardless of their specific backgrounds. When we open our ears, we hear other addicts talk of applying spiritual principles that promise hope to us as well, regardless of our personal goals. Just for today, I have my own path to follow, yet I'm grateful for the fellowship of others who've suffered from addiction and who are learning to apply the principles of recovery just like me. Today, Emotions Anonymous, July 2nd. Reflection for today. Before I can love anyone else, I have to accept and love myself. Healthy self love is necessary in my daily living. Love your neighbor as yourself does not say instead of yourself. Until I recognize the good and beautiful things in me and love me just as I am, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I cannot love another, nor can I truly begin replacing the character flaws I find in myself. Meditation for today. May I begin each day with a realization of my good qualities and always be grateful for them. Today I will remember I will be positive and grateful for the goodness within me. Strengthening my recovery. Meditations for adult children of alcoholics, dysfunctional families. July 2nd. Asking for help. At this juncture, the adult child usually isolates or becomes involved in busy work to avoid asking for help. BRB, page 66. We took care of everyone else for years, learning to be as invisible as possible, both physically and emotionally. Our worth was not based on who we were, but on what we could accomplish or do for others. We became so used to the struggle that we created it when it wasn't already there. Living in a hurricane of activity was normal for us. We started to avoid quiet because that's when we heard the painful voices, those that cried from deep within and said, "You are not good enough." As we learn to live in a different reality, we begin to recognize our self-worth. We see that our very existence is a gift from our higher power. We learn to reach out to our fellow travelers for help and feel love and acceptance. We allow others to take care of themselves, and we choose those who can and do so to be our companions. We become willing to own all of our feelings, not just the happiness or joy we are feeling, but also the anger and even rage when they come up. We recognize them as gifts that can lift us out of sand pits of grief and shame. We are careful not to harm others with these gifts, but instead use them as a gateway for healing our woundedness. The affirmation reads, "On this day, I will no longer do other people's work. I will feel the freedom of being responsible for myself, recognizing when I need guidance." Please share, subscribe, like, and most of all, be the you that you are created to be. And remember that you are not alone. and recovery is possible, one day at a time.